curry, stroganoff, tikka, stew, egg fried rice, chow mein, chili con carne.
A popular menu that has their customers queuing. Enjoying a bite of brunch before the park, Maria Sinclair and the children.
We're a family that do eat healthy, but there's also a balance between eating healthy and obviously the cost of it as well.
It can be really expensive, can't it? Especially if you've got children.
You can go to the shop and you can get, like I buy broccoli, for example, like the long stem broccoli, and you buy that for like £2, but you can get a chocolate bar for £1. It's really, really expensive to actually eat healthy.
But can government help to change this?
After decades of healthy eating campaigns, most of us know what we should be eating. And yet, as a nation, we're getting heavier. We spend around 2.2 billion on vegetables every year, but 3.9 billion on sweets. So how can we be helped to eat what we know we should be eating?
A new report suggests a solution, a tax on wholesale sugar and salt prices. Critics say that would mean some of the most popular processed snacks cost more money. The report's author argues that, like the sugar levy on fizzy drinks, it would nudge manufacturers to change their sugary and salty recipes.
If you look at a chocolate bar, a kind of standard sized chocolate bar, with no reformulation, that might go from 60p to 66p. But actually, we think what will happen is they'll reduce the sugar in that, the price will stay the same, our palates over time will become less sensitized to sugar, and we will be healthier and won't be paying more. So I don't accept the fact it's about reformulation, it's not about putting prices up.
The report was commissioned by the government. When the Prime Minister was hospitalised with COVID in April, he admitted he was overweight and launched a campaign to cut obesity. But today he appeared to dismiss the report's findings.
We believe in tackling obesity, trying to help people to lose weight with promoting exercise and tackling junk food advertising and so on. I'm not, I must say, attracted to the idea of extra taxes on hard-working people.
The government doesn't think it'll be a vote winner. A number of backbenchers have warned against what they call a nanny state crackdown on junk food.
I'd eat 4 dinners a day. I'd eat kebabs, I'd eat pizza, I'd drink gallons and gallons.
Mick Conroy has just been treated in hospital for a heart condition. He's been told to lose weight and to cut down on sugar and salt, but he doesn't think a tax is the answer.
So what did it take to make you change your eating habits?
You need to educate people to change the way they diet. You can't tell people, because then people with more money will be able to afford to have what they want. So it's unfair on people who may be poorer and generally less educated, it seems, because they get less resources.
Today's report suggests that 64,000 people a year die from diet-related diseases in England alone. And the COVID pandemic highlighted the impact of obesity and health inequalities. But just hours after it was published, the Prime Minister's response suggests there's little appetite in government for its recommendations. Darshna Soni, Channel 4 News, Nottingham.
Well, joining me now is the co-founder of Leon Restaurants and lead author of the National Food Strategy, Henry Dimbleby, who you saw in that report, and the Green MP, Caroline Lucas. Henry Dimbleby, is the Prime Minister wrong?
Well, I mean, what he actually said, rather than pouring doubt on 14 recommendations, he said that he didn't find attractive the idea of creating extra taxes for hard-working people, and I couldn't disagree with him on that. What this is about is not about putting up the prices of food. It's about reformulation. And the reason that, back to your previous, the guy you were just talking to, the reason that you have to do that is because the kind of tried and tested techniques, or the things that we think solve the obesity problem, education, exercise, willpower, we show in the report that scientifically that's just not true. You have this vicious circle between the commercial incentives of food companies and our appetite, and it is causing us to get ill, and it's going to overwhelm the NHS. And that's why this tax is trying to make those companies reformulate the products, so the worst foods that we eat are slightly less bad for us.
So you don't think the idea is dead in the water yet, by the sound of it? I mean, I have to say, we've been ringing Tory MPs all day, everybody else thinks it is. It's not a starter.
I don't think it's dead at all. I've been talking to all of the various government departments. They know this is a really serious problem. It's projected that by 2035, diabetes is going to cost 1.5 times as much to the NHS as treating all cancers do today. It's a huge problem, and this is a structural solution. I think that the Prime Minister was asked a question after a speech. He was bounced into an answer. He said he was going to consider the report. Downing Street have since said they're going to consider it.
But he kind of killed it, didn't he? For the key recommendation. That dismissal of sort of, I'm not attracted to taxing.
No, I don't think he did, actually. If you're a populist Prime Minister and someone says, do you want to introduce extra taxes? And, I delivered a 288-page report to him yesterday. He's not expected to have read the whole thing. So I think his response, I don't want to put extra taxes on hard-working people, is completely understandable. And I hope that when he kind of sits down and reads it, he'll see that's not what we're trying to do. And, he knows, I'm speaking to people who are close to him, he thinks about this every day. He's been profoundly personally affected by his situation, and he knows that we need to solve this. This is one of 14 recommendations that we propose to do that.
And we'll come to more of them, but first, Caroline Lucas, do you share Henry Dimbleby's optimism that actually, while it appears the Prime Minister has written this off, the idea could yet continue?
Well, I certainly hope Henry Dimbleby is right. I think it is the right kind of recommendation, and it was deeply disappointing to see the Prime Minister, within 5 hours of the publication of this report, apparently shooting down one of its key recommendations. And we know that MPs and ministers were briefing against it before it was even published. But I do know that there is a huge upswelling right across the country, right across many of the health charities and so forth, and people who are involved in farming, to say this is a crisis we absolutely have to address. It's a health crisis, it's a climate crisis, it's a nature crisis, it's a crisis of inequality. And I think the recommendations that Henry Dimbleby has put forward in this report go a very long way to tackling the interconnectedness of all of those issues. It's incredibly well researched and thought out. As Henry says, we know that education and information on their own aren't enough, that we also need those financial incentives. We know that when it comes to the soft drink levy, that did work. It did lead to a reformulation of those soft drinks, and the prices weren't put up particularly. And I think the bottom line is that in the 5th richest country in the world, we should be making sure that every single family can afford a healthy diet. And if that means we need to look again at the welfare system, at universal credit, and let's not forget this is the same government and the same Prime Minister who's just ruled out a £20 uplift in universal credit. If we need those payments to increase to enable us to have that healthy diet, then so be it. But the bottom line is that we cannot be consigning millions of poorer people to an early death and many, many illnesses simply because they cannot afford the kind of diet that they need and want.
But if you look through the recommendations, they involve cost. If you go to number 8 about sustainability and paying farmers, for another 4 or 5 years beyond the government's existing commitments, in the current climate where you have a chancellor who's saying, look, we can't keep spending money, and a prime minister who wants to please everybody and say, yes, let's do whatever we need to do. Do you see that one as a runner?
I do see that as a runner, and I think it's absolutely essential. Let's just take a step back here and recognise that the climate and nature emergencies are even grimmer in their impact than the COVID pandemic. We've seen how much governments can find to spend when they have that shared understanding of the level of threat. What we need to do is to ensure they recognise that the threat posed by climate and nature emergencies alongside the health and inequality crises that Henry Dimbleby sets out means that we have to spend this money. And we know that spending it up front means that it's going to cost us less overall over time. And we know that the externalized costs of continuing with business as usual simply won't enable us to get to the healthy future, either for our planet or for ourselves. So I think we need to put this in that wider context of the shift that we need to see towards a sustainable future.
Henry Dimbleby, let's put the tax question aside for a second. What's the next one, the next priority that you think is doable, that the government will buy into?
So on the nature side, we know that the food system is by far the biggest cause of natural destruction, of biodiversity loss, of water pollution, and with energy, it's the biggest cause of climate change. And the government has, in its new proposal for farming, a fantastic set of policies at its fingertips to change the way in which we farm fundamentally in this country. But that only works if they get their trade deals right. And for me, the second most important thing is to ensure that we get the trade deals right. If we do a trade deal with Brazil or with the US, where we have a tariff-free, quota-free system, then we will simply export those environmental harms abroad and destroy the livelihoods of many farmers here. And the Tory party has set out in their manifesto that they will protect those standards. They've had recommendations from me, they've had recommendations from the Trade and Agricultural Commission, which had some quite free marketeers on it. It wasn't just farmers, it had free marketeers on it. We both said, you need to tell us what the standards are that you meant you were protecting in your manifesto, and you need to tell us how you're protecting them. And that, for me, is the most urgent thing that the government needs to do after the work on health.
You've been doing these sorts of reports for the government for a number of years now, and they didn't exactly listen to you on, free school meals and extending entitlement to that. And here we again, have this slightly surprising response to this report. Why do you keep doing it?
Well, so I've done it twice, and when I did the school food plan back in 2013, and part one of this plan, and almost all of the policies in both of those plans have been put into place. Universal infant free school meals for everyone up to the age of 8, cooking on the curriculum for everyone up to the age of 14, holiday activity and food programmes made permanent, Healthy Start increased from £3.25 to £4.25. I've got a pretty good hit record, and I do it because it is an incredible privilege to have access to people, to talk to experts around the world, to be able to change things for the better. But obviously there is always a risk. I'm not elected. I do this stuff because I'm interested in it. I think I make a difference. I try and explain it in a very clear way. I try to kind of create a movement and a manifesto alongside the specific recommendations. And 2 out of 3, I've had success. Obviously, the hat-trick ball is the hardest ball to bowl, and nothing is certain. But I feel that I've given a very strong set of recommendations to the government, backed by not only solid analysis but a real vision for what the future of the food system in this country could be. And I am optimistic that they will listen, as they have done before, and put in place these policies.
Henry Dimbleby, Caroline Lucas, thank you both very much.